First at 5. 10 News with Walden and Jennifer Hansen. Tonight, the random murder of a taxi driver shot in the head.
A pre-Christmas blow for hundreds of workers facing the axe.
And a record crowd for Colonial Stadium as 70,000 students try to bring the house down.
Also tonight, an MP thrown out of state parliament after a row over a PR stunt.
But first tonight, detectives have spent the day piecing together the last moments of a Melbourne cabbie. The 33-year-old father of two was shot in the head and his body dumped. His stolen taxi was found 12 kilometres away.
33-year-old taxi driver Cameron Rudd was shot in the head. His body discovered by two security guards about 2 a.m. The father of two was dumped near an industrial bin in a dead-end street in Dandenong.
It was clearly a violent crime, but as far as motives, what may have led to it, clearly it's still to be established.
Overnight searches failed to locate the taxi, but a breakthrough this morning. The bloodstained vehicle was discovered in a nearby suburb. It was parked outside a KFC restaurant in Cranbourne. The driver's seat bloodstained and the keys in the ignition.
At this stage, we are not in a position to say where he was shot, but we do believe that he was shot whilst in the driver's seat.
The vehicle's owner assisting police as they combed the area for evidence. Police believe the victim's last job was a street pickup in Cranbourne about 10:30 last night. They're investigating whether the destination was linked to a brothel located just metres from where the body was found. And as police continued searching in the industrial area where the body was dumped, the state government was vowing to finalise plans it announced just yesterday to install security cameras in Melbourne's taxi fleets.
Nothing can replace a loss of life, and it's a very tragic set of circumstances, and we wish the police speed in resolving this terrible crime.
Taxi drivers also angry.
Well, we're not too happy about it, but let's hope they get them.
Kim Carter, 10 News.
And a late story just breaking as we go to air. Victoria's Governor, Sir James Gobbo, has been rushed to hospital in Hong Kong after suffering a suspected heart attack. The 69-year-old governor was on his way to a goodwill visit to Japan when he suddenly fell ill. Sir James remains under observation in hospital. Government House officials say he's expected to make a full recovery. Premier Steve Bracks says he's spoken to Sir James, who is in good spirits, and hopes to return to Melbourne in a fortnight.
Another 500 manufacturing jobs have been lost in Melbourne. Angry workers at the South Pacific Tyres in Somerton have been told the heavy truck tyre plant is closing before Christmas.
Oh, devastating. Absolutely devastating. Not just for me, but a lot of blokes got mortgages, young families. What do? Right on Christmas. They're going to kick in your ass.
Danny Falk is one of 500 workers who'll be out of a job come Christmas. Union delegates met with South Pacific management this morning to be told the bad news.
Well, I think there is a crisis in manufacturing. In Victoria, that is 620 jobs that have disappeared in 2 days.
Management didn't comment after the meeting, but at a news conference this afternoon, South Pacific's CEO said the decision was purely commercial.
The competitive position of that particular plant in terms of global competitiveness simply is not commercially viable.
He says the company will cut its Somerton heavy truck tyre plant to remain internationally competitive. South Pacific Tyres, a joint venture of Dunlop, had been losing money in recent months. It posted a $4 million loss last financial year. But the union claims the company could be returned to profitability without having to slash the workforce. The latest cuts follow the loss of 120 jobs at plastics manufacturer Qenos. The Australian Workers' Union says the federal government must act.
Southeast Asian governments are so much more active than the federal government in Canberra in chasing jobs.
But the opposition blames the Bracks government for inaction.
Clearly, we've got to stop the exodus of jobs and cut business taxes in Victoria so this doesn't happen any further in the future.
Mr Birrell claims 8,000 manufacturing jobs have been lost this year, but the government disagrees.
There's now been 38,900 new jobs created in manufacturing over the past 12 months. That puts manufacturing employment in Victoria at a 10-year high.
James Sutherland, 10 News.
There's been an unlikely row over push bikes in state parliament. A Liberal MP was thrown out during a rowdy question time this afternoon. The uproar came during a heated debate over a publicity stunt involving Liberal leader Dennis Napthine.
An angry Mordialloc MP Jeff Lee was given his marching orders after defending the honour of his leader Dennis Napthine, targeted by Transport Minister Peter Batchelor over his involvement in a Right to Work campaign.
Who attended Right to Work Day by being driven there and driven away again.
Forcing some backpedalling from Dr Napthine, who says he was ready, willing and able to ride to Parliament from the South Bank launch.
The arrangements were for me to ride from the South Bank to here, which was cancelled for a bicycle order.
Other Liberals also rising in support of their leader.
I don't know what the ministers had over lunch, but he's turning this Parliament into a farce.
The question time row distracting from some positive news for the opposition. After a series of disastrous opinion polls, the latest shows it has clawed back some of Labor's massive lead.
And these are just distractions. The real game's 2.5 years away. We're about 5 minutes into the second quarter, so we'll see what happens about 2.5 years on.
While the Liberal vote remains in the doldrums, the poll will provide some encouragement to Dennis Napthine as he battles the perception that he's a leader under siege from within his own party. But he continues to struggle to make inroads into Premier Steve Brack's healthy lead in the popularity stakes.
And at least he's shown some consistency, and that is he's remained on 8% for the past 6 months. 8%.
Gareth Boreham, 10 News.
The US presidential election remains on a legal knife edge tonight after another day of confusion. A recount in the crucial state of Florida puts George W. Bush just 300 votes ahead of Al Gore, but more court challenges appear certain.
Florida law said time ran out today for hand-tallying crucial votes in disputed counties. Or did it?
She can't just stand firm and say, I'm not going to think about this after 5 p.m. She violates that. She violates a court order.
She is Katherine Harris, a Republican who set the deadline for announcing Florida's final results and therefore the president. With George W. Bush just 300 votes ahead of Al Gore and 3 counties ignoring the tally deadline, Harris changed her tune.
I'm requiring a written statement of the facts and circumstances that would cause these counties to believe that a change should be made before the final certification of the statewide vote.
This angered the Bush camp.
These Democratic counties are no longer recounting. They are reinventing.
Thousands of Florida voters are protesting the ballots. They say confusion over the layout cost them their votes for Al Gore.
We just don't look like the most powerful nation in the world when it comes to just running simple elections.
Both sides are getting increasingly frustrated.
But when is it going to end? I ask you, when is it going to end?
Maybe by the weekend when the deadline for overseas ballots expires, or maybe not if the Democrats decide to take this election to the Supreme Court.
And the result is still in dispute. That's right. It's in dispute because some people...
Michelle Stone in the United States, 10 News.
And Aussie tennis great John Newcombe has finally spoken out about his notorious night out with George W. Bush. Newk says he and Bush have often laughed about the night, which led to a drink-driving charge for the presidential candidate.
That's something that just happened that night. We were just a couple of young blokes going out having a good time and didn't do anything wrong, basically.
Newcombe says Bush is a good bloke and if he gets over the line, would make a good president.
There was a record crowd at Colonial Stadium today with 70,000 Catholic students filling the ground for the great Jubilee Mass for Schools. The children from more than 300 Catholic primary, secondary schools descended on the stadium for the Mass, creating the 2,000 years since the birth of Jesus Christ. The Governor-General, Premier and Acting Prime Minister attended the service, which saw the largest movement of students to an event in Melbourne's history. Now here's Stephen looking ahead to tonight's sport.
Thanks, Mel. The VRC to examine doubles betting sheets in the lead-up to tomorrow's diatribe hearing. In cricket, Damien Fleming begins his fight to regain his test spot. The reigning Bathurst champions sound a warning to their rivals. And John Newcombe quashes talk Leighton Hewitt as a doubtful starter for the Davis Cup final.
Thanks, Stephen. And coming up, the PM finally makes it to the APEC summit. And a birthday treat for Australia's oldest resident who's happy to live life in the slow lane.